but as a motivating force, the motivation to really know what's true usually comes out of observation. And some of you, I'm sure, have had these kind of observation. You can simply look around you. I'm sure many people in this room looked around at a very, very young age and noticed that the world was a pretty strange place. The people world was a pretty strange place. That it just didn't make a whole lot of sense, especially when we're quite young. It's quite confusing. All these adults are running around completely consumed with their own insanity. It's a pretty confusing place. And we get a little bit older, and then I was just about to say, then we can't miss it, but we actually can miss it. We almost can't miss, at a certain point, the insanity that's taken to be normal all around us. And you've simply through your observation, through living your life, at times it breaks through, a little light gets in, a little crack in our own self-obsession gets through, and something reminds us. Something reminds you that, hey, what's going on? What's really going on here? What's really true here? Is there anything that's really true going on? If you pay attention to life, it would make you wonder, wouldn't it? What's really true? It often starts with certain observations about what we call the external world and the people within it, how they move through it. Of course, nowadays where we're bombarded with, I was going to say news programs, but they're not really, are they? I'm not sure what to call them. Spin programs, that was good. Yeah, spin programs. Two idiots arguing, really. That's probably what it is. You always need two idiots arguing, right? One on this side, one on that side. Let them loose like a couple of pit bulls. And we're supposed to learn something from that, But there is something to learn from it, really, because it highlights something about human nature, about us, about you, and about me. Because they are us, they are you, and they are me. And they show us something, this ridiculous way that human beings relate. I mean, if you watch something like that and you don't start to realize this is insane. These human beings that I'm watching on my TV set are nuts. Even if you agree with them, they're usually still nuts, which I'm not sure what that says about us. I agree with this nut. He's my nut, So I suppose with all of our technology, all of our media, at least human insanity is something that is very, very upfront for us. We don't have to go looking for it. We don't have to dig very far to see it. It's so highlighted, it's so encouraged. Right? But out of this, possibly, every once in a while, someone starts being engaged in life. Someone starts to get an intuition that, hey, something vital is being missed. What's going on? Is everybody crazy? Is oneself crazy? What's really true? So I'm not even talking yet in some absolute sense. I'm just talking about when you observe the life. It brings the question all by itself. The question arises from the observation. What's really true here? Is there truth here? Or is there just this sort of chaos? And of course then when we bring that when we get courageous enough to we bring that inside. Because we can keep fixated on the world out here, can't we? And we can be the judge, jury, and executioner of the world out here. And it's very safe to see insanity out here. But when we finally start to turn around and look inside, what most of us find is what's going on out here is the same thing that's going on in here. You may actually find that it can be a bit more chaotic and insane within your being, but nonetheless they actually mirror each other. So we're not actually talking about them or the world. The world actually shows us something vital about human nature. Human nature. So what's true becomes a whole new orientation. What's really real, what's really true. Now most of the people I can see in this room, simply from the age that you are, the ages that you are, I think most people in this room are old enough to have probably been through your own search for truth in different ways. And you've probably exposed yourself by this time in your life to a whole lot of ideas. Whole lot of ideas. And you've probably, I imagine for some of you, you've seen that all the ideas, you really don't find the truth in the ideas. Which if you haven't got there yet, you will, don't worry. Oh, you might want to worry because it's kind of devastating. Do you know that devastation when you realize there's no idea is going to save you? Do you know what I mean? No matter who it came from, no matter how high the authority, no matter how far back in history, no matter how mythical the being may or may not have been, that really they do not have your answer for you. But within each of us, as I said, is this desire to feel good, desire to be happy, fulfilled, satisfied. And there's also inherent within us this desire for truth. And when I say desire for truth, I don't mean this as an adult thing, necessarily. We turn it into this very highly educated adult thing. Does that make sense? You know, what's really real? It sounds so adult, doesn't it? What's real? What's true? Like, it sounds very abstract, I think, to a lot of people. But, you know, for those of you who've had children, you know that children have a great interest in what's true. What's this, Mommy? How does this work, Mommy? Where does this come from? Why? 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 Well, because da-da-da-da-da. Why? Well, you see, da-da-da-da. Why? Well, see, it works this way. Why? You know what I mean? Yeah, the 2 or 3 or 4-year-old will drive a physicist to the edge of their knowledge and then right off the cliff, you know? Well, see, Johnny, E equals MC squared. It's so, you see? Why? Well, hell, we don't know why. Why not? Do you see? So there's a thing in us that's when I say this desire for truth, it's a curiosity thing. It's something that's very alive. It's living. It's a curiosity. I think, unfortunately, many of us adults get it sort of crushed in our system because it's so directed. You know, it's like, oh, no, you've got to learn what I want you to learn, and it gets so directed that it loses its allure, it loses its sparkle, it loses its mystery. Do you know? The mystery of curiosity. Because when I talk about like inquiry, what is true, what I really mean is that that curiosity that's innate within us. So, and curiosity is innate within us as the drive to be happy, to feel good. That curiosity is a very, very powerful force within us. You know? So when a child goes through that stage in their life where they're asking lots and lots of questions, they want to know lots of things. That's their innate curiosity. That's the drive within life to know what's really real, what's really true. How does this work? How does that work? It's a beautiful, beautiful drive. So through both of these, life endeavors to become conscious. And that's why we're all here. Because life is endeavoring to be conscious of itself. That's it. That's really what's going on. Our own, what we think of as our own personal spiritual search really isn't our own at all. And it's not really near as personal as we may think. Although it unfolds in a very personal way, it's really life seeking to become conscious. And it's bound and determined to become conscious. For or against your will, with or without your cooperation. You can completely walk away from any apparent interest in truth, and you can't actually walk very far, because it will come find you again. Somehow, somewhere. You can't get away from yourself, can you? Although, God, do we try, especially in spirituality. But this is a really, really quite important thing to understand. If our drive simply to feel better is always driving us, then our interaction, especially with, let's say, since we're here on a spiritual retreat, with our spiritual lives, much less the rest of our lives, but our spiritual lives will be, how do I feel better? So if I have fear, my question will be some form, some version of, how do I get rid of this dreadful fear? Which means what? How do I feel better? If I'm confused, how do I get rid of this awful confusion? Nobody ever comes to me and says, I'm blissed out. How do I get rid of this? I'm extraordinarily happy. Can you help me with this? Never happens, do they? It just never happens. But when we're uncomfortable, when we have discomfort, then that drive often takes over, and that drive is really just, the way it's operating is, how do I feel better? How do I feel better? It may couch itself in very abstract spiritual terminology, but it can very easily be just an extension of how do I feel better. And if how do I feel better is divorced from any interest in truth, then it can only take you so far. Because the truth of the matter is, part of what helps us become conscious is not feeling better. Is it not? I don't mean that I would suggest pursuing not feeling better as a way to get more conscious. I don't think you probably would anyway, but it's part of what helps bring clarity to our lives. You're in a moment of confusion, doubt, anxiety, guilt, shame maybe, confusion, existential angst, dread. Now, these things are very, very, very potent spiritual motivators.